right now the Sacramento Kings are 27-19.
Mm-hmm.
They just lost to the Miami Heat. We're not supposed to be biased on this show, but
Thank God.
yeah, man, it got rough for our team for 7 games there. But man, there's 2 players in particular I want to talk about, and we're going to make sure we get to them. But I just want to point out that, first of all, tonight, Domantas Sabonis, he got a triple-double, but it was his 29th consecutive double-double.
Crazy.
I feel like with Domantas Sabonis, he's another extremely underrated player. And I can't even say it's because of the team he plays for, because last season the Kings got a ton of attention. They haven't been as explosive this year, even though they have been, like I said, 27-19. That's not bad.
It's expected this year because I feel like they're probably just as good, maybe a little bit worse, but they've also had a little bit, some changes and stuff like that. But man, like you were saying, like they're 27-19 and nobody's talking about them. When last year they were roughly around this pace and everybody was like, they're turning heads. Exactly, like the Bane.
And so, man, I kind of want to just give credit because heading into tonight's game, I was preparing for the show right after the game, so I didn't check after the game. But heading into tonight's game, the Kings were on a 4-game win streak where Domantas Sabonis averaged 17 points, 17 rebounds, and 7 assists.
Damn.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I understand without question that Nikola Jokic is the best passing big in the NBA. I understand Alperen Sengun is incredible with the passes he makes.
Mm-hmm.
We got to stop overlooking Domantas Sabonis in that category. Sure. And it's not just a dribble handoff. I know they dribble handoff a lot and he gets assists off that. I'm not looking at assist numbers. I mention stats on here to kind of give context, but anybody who really knows me knows I rarely even check box scores. I don't care about that shit. Watching the games and the reads he makes, even off of offensive rebounds, to where, like, if you're playing and you're getting an offensive rebound, you're focused on getting that rebound. And he knows where guys are just right off rip, and he's making he's making tough reads off these.
Yeah, even the dribble handoff thing, like people,
it's still not easy.
It's not easy, man. Like we've seen firsthand a lot of people who just don't know how to do it. We see it every NBA team who is not like those bigs we named. If you're not Jokic, dribble handoff, very good. Sabonis dribble handoffs, very good. Bam is very good at dribble handoffs as well. It's like there's very select people that just know if there's a pacing to it. There's a way to do it. There's a way to like deny the dribble handoff, keep your dribble alive, hit him when he cuts around. And Sabonis it feels like he plays basketball to a T. And he's been like, I know you stated in his last 4 games, but this entire month he's been on a fucking tear.
Yeah.
21, 14 and a half, and 9. Like, can we talk about his rebounding for somebody who is not the most athletic person? Man. He is incredibly strong. Literally, it feels like he's a cement brick, like that you're trying to move and just does not go anywhere. First, he doesn't even feel like he's like that, like hefty in terms of like weight, like some of the like we just talked about Nurkic, like you can tell Nurkic just like 290, 295. Yeah. Sabonis doesn't feel like that, but it's just he has that like grown man strength. He has just the IQ and like wherewithal and placement of rebounds. Like he can just find things that typically most players don't find. But we got to talk about Swiper.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing about Domantas Sabonis' rebounding, though, before we move on. So with his rebounding, I think it gets, and this is important for me to say because a lot of people kind of like, especially if we have somebody younger listening who plays and probably should know this. When The Last Dance came out and Dennis Rodman was talking about rebounding, it went viral because Dennis Rodman's a funny guy with the whole click here, do this, boom. But when I was watching that live, like, it made complete sense to me because I had heard Dwight Howard say a similar thing as far as it was more coherent. But rebounding is a skill. I think a lot of people don't know that. It's not just because what you get told a lot of times and what your coaches may tell you if they're not that good of a coach, to be honest with you. They'll just say it's about effort, just want it more. And it's like, no, you have to not only have a feel for where the ball's going to go, because that is part of it, but you have to know angles. You may have to, and Dennis Rodman's take it as far as knowing how many times the ball will rotate when the shooter shot it. So you have to know the angles of, all right, he's shooting from over here, so the ball's most likely going to bounce over here. And Domantas Sabonis has kind of mastered that skill. So I want to give him credit for that. Because like you said, he's not athletic. He's strong for sure. But there's a skill to rebound, and I feel like most people just don't really know about. And he's definitely mastered it. But I want you to go in first on De'Aaron Fox.
Oh man, I'm gonna pair him with Malik Monk because this backcourt with these two guys running the show with the speed. Yeah, like talk about the quickness, I guess, the speed that Sabonis doesn't have the top end of. Mm-hmm. These guys are like, you don't need that, man. We got you and then some, because they're like the speed at which they play with, the downhill, like steady diet of I'm coming every single time I'm driving it straight into the paint. De'Aaron Fox has done that. He was on a tear earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. He's cooled off a bit, but it's like the team is still winning. It's different ways to winning in basketball. Like, you know, the shooters around him have gotten a lot better. Werder started off really bad. He's picked it back up as well. So it's just the ability to read the game. But man, Swipa, particularly offensively, has just been consistent pressure at the rim. His shooting has gotten better. His ability to process, to play without the ball as well. Mm-hmm. Him and which makes that pairing of him and Sabonis just that much worth it. Probably the most even trade in damn near basketball history. It feels like.
And I said that from day one. Not to cut you off. I said that from day one. I feel like Tyrese Halliburton's my favorite player in the NBA. Mm-hmm. But one, it freed up De'Aaron Fox because they had to share a lot of responsibility. And two, the stuff Domantas Sabonis would open up for that team. But yeah, you were making. I'm not. You go ahead and finish your point. I just had
no, go ahead. By all means, shit. You're cooking.
I was finished. I just had to mention that.
No, yeah, it's just the ability in which they play alongside each other. Like the space they create. People were saying, Sabonis isn't really a great shooter. Fox isn't really a great shooter. But in the same sense that's the case, it's forced Fox to kind of operate further away from the rim. But it's also given him somebody he can trust in pick and rolls. It's taken playmaking duties off of him. When Fox came into the league from Kentucky, obviously him and Malik Monk were tearing shit up over there too, so it's nice to see them back together. But he wasn't, it wasn't like he was the sole playmaker. Like he was a score first point. Like that's the build of point guards that most, we were talking about off air. Most point guards nowadays are score first point guards. Like that whole position thing you were talking about is kind of different. And that's kind of what De'Aaron Fox is, positionless basketball. He's just a bucket getter at whatever space of the floor. But he's been on a tear. And go ahead, man. On De'Aaron, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So what I want to give him credit for is, and you kind of alluded to it, just the adjustment coming into the NBA. First of all, and there have been point guards who come into the league recently, and including Trae Young, who they'll come in struggling. And the first reaction to most things, which I don't love, is kind of like make fun of guys and be like, they're a bust, is that, whatever. But for a point guard, no, I'll put it this way. Every player who goes into the NBA, they say the toughest adjustment is adjusting to the speed of the game and how fast things are going. So imagine being a point guard and having to control that speed. And having to control the tempo and it's tough, man. And De'Aaron Fox didn't even necessarily start off his career bad, but just to see what he's become. And also the thing that's really tough for point guards coming in, especially his type of point guard, is, and it took John Wall a few years, even though he was really good, being that fast, but not overusing that, being able to slow down and just kind of, because what will happen a lot of times is you're faster than everybody, so just going, and you're making decisions too fast, and your running play is too fast, and it comes down to things as small as your big is coming over to set a screen, and you went too early, and now he got an offensive foul and a turnover. Another team has the ball, and you kind of ruined the momentum. And so I want to give De'Aaron Fox credit mostly for not only what he's been, but that journey in itself as a point guard coming into the league and having this freak athleticism and kind of being just a freak athlete at first and really becoming more of a well-rounded player. Because like you mentioned, his shooting has improved over the years. He has less playmaking responsibility, but he's also a better playmaker than he was before. And so I want to give him credit on all of that. Now, speaking of players improving as they've come into the league, Keegan Murray this year is a lockdown defender. And I did not expect that at all last season. It's like he read like one or two posts or articles or whatever about how the Kings lost in the playoffs last year because of the defense. He was like, you know what? I'll do it myself. I'll figure it out.
He's been like, you know, a lot of things get made on sophomore slumps.
Mm-hmm.
So far off the spectrum for him.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about his points per game. I'm talking about like the actual improvement of his game as a basketball player. Like you stated, his defense has been 2, 3, 4 notches above where it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
He saw what it was needed to win. Super important for a player as young as him, or, you know, young into the league. You know, he's 23. That doesn't really matter. Just in terms of NBA experience, to get that playoff experience against somebody like the Golden State Warriors that they did last year. A lot of learning curves for him, got challenged, came back. And to be very honest, Kenny, I could have told you from day one in the summer league, he was about to be different.
Oh, yeah.
Day one in the summer league, for those of you who don't know, he dropped like 40 points, the most effortless 40 points. He was unfazed by everybody. He was getting, you know, thrown up against, just looked like a man amongst boys and, you know, ready for that second year leap. And he's carried that into the season on both ends of the court. And it's not even to state like, you know, obviously we know what he could do as a shooter. We know how hot he can get as a shooter. It's adding the different layers to the game. Now being more of a 3-level scorer than just a catch and shoot shooter, putting the ball on the floor. Obviously not the best playmaker and stuff like that, but that's not really his role. He's more of a catch and finish, play finisher than he is, a shot creator or, a playmaker as opposed to that. But he's been no sophomore slump for Keegan at all, for sure.
Yeah. And it's like, we talked off air, and I don't want to keep saying talked off air and not give the full context. We were talking about point guards, well, really scorers in general. And I used the example off air of Gilbert Arenas mentioned, I forgot which podcast or interview it was, where he was talking about his style of play when he played and why he scored so much. And the example he used is like, while you're doing all these dribble moves and in and outs and behind the backs and all this, he could have scored twice in that time because he just got to his spot and just got the bucket. And that's been Keegan Murray. It's no, and I don't want to sound like somebody's coach and be like, there's no flash to his game. But as I get older and as I learn more about the game, which I try to do every day, learn something, I start to really understand what my coaches back then were talking about. Like, that is the best way for you to, like, there's ways to be efficient with the scoring. I don't necessarily mean as far as the percentages, because sometimes shots either fall or they don't, but just kind of getting to the point in a sense. And you mentioned Keegan Murray as a play finisher. I couldn't have said it a better way. That's usually used for like lob catchers and whatever it is and rim runners, but that's not really all it is with play finishers. So that's why I'm glad you used that in the sense of Keegan Murray, because if he's open, he'll shoot it. If not, he'll attack the closeout. If he only needs one dribble to do it, he'll take that and pull up. He has so many ways to score in so little time. It's exactly what that team needs.
Yeah, and it's so much of, we stated like Sabonis playmaking. We stated what De'Aaron Fox does in terms of, getting to the rim, his ability to just capitalize off of tilted defenses once they become tilted with Fox's speed or with Sabonis' savvy is, truly special, man. And his ability to remain efficient while basically, having more responsibility, having to shoot more. Sometimes he does get to create a little bit with less time on the shot clock. He is a bailout guy every now and then. But just his ability to remain efficient while doing it within an offense as a second-year player for a team who's 27-19, like these things are not common in today's, league, and just in general, not in just today's league, in general. Like a second-year player should not be this poised, just know his role like this. Like he gets it. That's basically what I'm trying to get at. And I'm not just talking about gets it from the standpoint of stats and like what he does. Like he gets it in the standpoint of winning. Like he's like, what does it take to win? Like that's what I want to do. And Keegan's been special. He absolutely torched the fucking Heat today. He had 33, had a previous game where he hit like 11 threes as well. Like just still has that to his game, but it's not just that he can get to, it's everything else that he's been able to throw in and just get better. So this whole theory of drafting older players because they can't develop, man.
Yeah, and there's to be a little transparent with the audience. There are so many times where I'll be about to say something and Lou will have no idea, and he'll just transition perfectly into it. But we talked about that witty mind. Like good teams should start looking at these older players because they've come up and they've already played in systems. Sometimes they've played in the same system your team played in already. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I know what system Keegan Murray was in college, but just the overall understanding of it's different from, and I don't have an issue with young players either, but it's different when you've been in a system for a while to where you fully have the concept of I don't necessarily have to be the guy every single night. I can attack the closeouts because somebody else drew the help, and now I can just get my points this way, and I'll still get my points, and we'll still win because I'm still making things tough on the defense. I'm just not the first person in this possession to do it. And so, man, credit to Keegan Murray. I understand, like even with him being a great example for what we talk about as far as older players coming into the league, still having that mindset is just incredible, man.
Yeah, and to transition from Keegan, because I'd be fucking remiss, Kenny, if I did not bring him up. Malik Monk.
Oh, credit to him because he's turned his reputation around.
Talk about different players get it at different times. Different players get it in different locations. They have different freedoms, yada, yada, whatever it may be. But Malik Monk this year, in my personal opinion, would get my vote for Sixth Man of the Year. He has been talk about playmaking.
Yeah.
Some of the reasons Fox isn't playmaking is because Malik is.
Right.
His passing has been sensational. Literally has not started a game under Mike Brown. He not one game. Has 77 last year, 44 this year. 0 starts. Definition of a sixth man.
Right.
Getting to the rim. If I don't want to say efficiently scoring because 43-38, but just getting the team a bucket when they need it. Too much can be made about efficiency. Sometimes you just got to create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And he's been doing that. His playmaking, creating shots for others, like just in general, getting to the rim, creating something out of nothing, something that he's doing for a team that desperately needs it. And a lot of the beneficiaries of this are guys like Fox, obviously, like we talked about Keegan, as well as like Kevin Herters and Harrison Barnes, like just the team in general. They just, yeah, man. Sorry, but Malik Monk, I would have just been remiss to not talk about him because watching him in Kentucky, he was a little small. Maybe he wasn't the good enough passer to play the one of those tweeners that is really a 2 in a 1's body. But he's shifted from that, man. A career high by far in assist. Yeah. And just adding layers to his game, and he's only 25 years old, and he's been in the league for what feels like forever.
Yeah, and you know what? He's a great example of why both me and you always talk about not really judging a player too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And look, none of these guys peak at 22, 23, 24 years old, right? So he's a great example of that, because a lot of times players do develop things behind the scenes and they're just either not asked to do it or they're not in the right place to do it. And so in Charlotte, he wasn't going to get the chance to play make because LaMelo Ball has it. It just is what it is. It's LaMelo Ball, and then if not LaMelo, it was Terry Rozier. He goes to LA, it's LeBron. And I don't care who you are. If LeBron's on the floor, you let him make the decisions. Point blank. I don't care what it is. And so, man, credit to Malik Monk getting the opportunity to do more than because also that style of player of what he was before, just come off the bench and score. I personally don't. I think that role isn't all that necessary. They should still be able to do some more stuff. But those guys also get a bad rap in a sense. It was like automatically just get assumed to be like a low IQ type player. And that's not always necessarily true. Sometimes it's just what they have to do. They may be inefficient at times, but a lot of times that's because they have such a green light where if you don't shoot this ball, you come out of the game. I don't care what your percentage is. And so, man, credit to Malik Monk for sure for being able to. I don't know when he developed the playmaking. I'm not going to assume it's this year because that's not a one summer thing where you come back with. And so, credit to him for getting the opportunity, and credit to Mike Brown for giving him the opportunity. Because a lot of times, coaches will see you in the background improving on something and just be so stuck in their ways and just in what it is that they assume that you can do. And Will Hardy said this about Colin Sexton recently. He had to start to overcome and overlook what Colin Sexton's reputation was and use him to his strengths. And so credit to Mike Brown for doing the same thing with Malik Monk.
Yeah, because to be very honest with you, Malik Monk was playmaking in Kentucky. Yeah. But it's just like you said, a matter of situation, a matter of who's around him, a matter of egos, like pecking order, a lot of things, man. But huge credit to Mike Brown. He's been, talk about coaches getting a second chance. Mm-hmm. Damn, man. He's been sensational for this team, changed the culture, felt like he's learned a lot. Obviously, no coach is the same as they were 15 years ago. Right. Some are better, some are worse. In the case of Mike Brown, he's been a lot better this second stint around for sure.
Yeah, man. Credit to him. Well, I think we might be the only podcast that ever really gives credit to coaches.
What?
we kind of have to be, but man, they deserve it. It's a tough job. It's a tough job. And it's a thankless job. And you can do everything right. And if your team doesn't have the talent, they'll fire you before they trade anybody. Mm-hmm. It sucks.
You're the first one out all the time.
First one out every time, no matter what. And even with Mike Brown, for example, he was a really good coach in Cleveland with LeBron. And I think it was a long time ago. Yeah. But he ended up losing that job. And he goes to the Lakers. And the Lakers market has not liked the coach since Phil Jackson. And before that, it was Pat Riley. And they even turned sour on Pat Riley. And so that's probably the toughest job in the NBA, the head coach of the Lakers. But that stint kind of ruined his reputation in a sense. So now it's good to see him bounce back after his years with the Warriors, back as the head coach with the Kings, really getting it done out there, man. Credit to him for sure.